pyramid's impossible precision. The desert wind whispers endlessly across the Giza plateau, carrying with it the dry scent of stone and the ghosts of countless centuries. Rising from the sands, the Great Pyramid of Khufu towers above the earth, as though frozen in mid-step toward the heavens. Its blocks of limestone and granite weigh as much as 60 tons each, yet were transported, lifted, and set with a precision that still confounds the modern mind. Aligning so neatly with the cardinal directions, the pyramid deviates by only a fraction of a degree, a feat difficult even with today's GPS and laser surveying tools. Scholars agree that ancient Egyptian engineers were astonishingly skilled, their knowledge of geometry and organization unrivaled for their age. Yet the question lingers: how did they manage such feats, with copper chisels and rope as their supposed limits? Mainstream archaeology tells us that ramps, long, sloping avenues of mud brick and stone, were likely the solution, enabling workers to haul blocks higher as construction rose. Thousands of labourers, organised into rotating teams, were fed, housed and kept motivated by a system that resembles a well-oiled civic machine. The remains of workers' villages nearby support this idea, suggesting a large but ordinary workforce rather than slaves. And yet, the mystery of scale remains. To haul more than 2 million blocks into place within Khufu's lifetime, just over 2 decades, would have required a logistical rhythm so precise that even one error could have thrown the project into chaos. Here, the fringe theories slip in, weaving their whispers among the sand. Some speak of lost technologies, sound-based levitation, water-channeling devices, or even machines powered by forgotten energies. Others point to the way the Great Pyramid's base matches almost perfectly with the curvature of the Earth, as though its builders understood geodesy on a planetary level. A few go further still, imagining not just human hands at work, but guidance from somewhere beyond. The pyramid's dimensions, after all, seem to encode numbers associated with the speed of light, the circumference of the Earth, and ratios that later cultures would recognize as sacred. Coincidence, perhaps, or a relic of knowledge passed down from civilizations more ancient than Egypt itself. Standing in the silent chambers within, the air cool and stale, one can feel the weight of both history and uncertainty pressing down. The so-called King's Chamber, roofed by massive granite beams, remains a marvel of structural engineering. The precision of its construction minimizes stress, dispersing weight in ways modern engineers still study. But the chamber's purpose, tomb, resonance chamber, or something entirely different, remains unresolved. Despite more than 2 centuries of scholarly debate, no definitive royal mummy has ever been recovered from within the Great Pyramid. Scholars still debate whether this monument was simply the apex of human ingenuity in stone, or whether it points toward forgotten chapters in our collective past. Was it a tomb, a cosmic marker, or perhaps something far stranger, an ancient machine aligned with the stars themselves? We may never know for certain, yet each time we gaze at the Great Pyramid, its perfect lines catching the light of dawn, we are reminded that humanity's earliest civilizations were capable of achievements that still leave us humbled. Gobekli Tepe's forgotten builders. On a windswept hilltop in southeastern Turkey, a cluster of massive stone pillars rises from the soil, etched with the faint reliefs of animals, snakes, vultures, foxes, and wild boar. This is Gobekli Tepe, unearthed in the 1990s, and quickly recognized as one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the modern era. Radiocarbon dating places its earliest layers around 9600 BCE, thousands of years before the Great Pyramid or Stonehenge. It predates the invention of pottery, the wheel, and, most remarkably, organised agriculture. Yet here stand circles of T-shaped pillars, some towering nearly 20 feet tall, arranged with geometric precision as though designed for ceremony, ritual, or communion with forces larger than life. The mainstream fact is as clear as it is unsettling. Gobekli Tepe challenges the long-held sequence of human development. The narrative we learned in textbooks that farming led to settled life, which in turn gave rise to religion and monumental architecture, crumbles in the shadow of these stones. Here, it seems, faith or ritual came first. Groups of hunter-gatherers pooled labour to raise temples, implying levels of coordination and cultural sophistication we once thought impossible for societies of their scale. Some archaeologists believe these very gatherings may have sparked the shift toward farming, as communities needed stable food sources to sustain the monumental work. And yet, quirks abound. Many of the carvings at Gobekli Tepe suggest a symbolic language beyond simple decoration. Stylized hands on the pillars hint at anthropomorphic figures, perhaps gods or ancestors, towering over the congregants. Some researchers propose that certain animal reliefs correspond to constellations, turning the site into a celestial map, a stony archive of the sky as it appeared 12,000 years ago. If so, its builders were not just hunters and foragers, but keen astronomers. Even stranger, Gobekli Tepe was deliberately buried. Around 8000 BCE, after centuries of use, its builders, or perhaps their descendants, carefully filled the enclosures with rubble, entombing them until rediscovered in our own time. Was this act a form of reverence, a ritual closure of sacred ground? Or was it, as some fringe theorists suggest, an attempt to hide knowledge that was never meant to endure? Scholars still debate whether Gobekli Tepe was the world's first temple, a communal gathering site, or something beyond the categories we impose. Some see echoes of lost civilizations, whispering of a culture erased by the end of the Ice Age. Others connect its date with the controversial Younger Dryas theory, suggesting that a cataclysm, perhaps a comet strike, reshaped not just the Earth's climate, but human memory itself. As the sun sets over the Anatolian plain, shadows stretch across the silent pillars, and we are reminded that Gobekli Tepe stands as both proof and puzzle, proof that humans were capable of immense organization and artistry at the dawn of history, and puzzle because its very existence rewrites what we thought we knew. In the forgotten builders of this hilltop sanctuary, we glimpse a story far older and far stranger than we dared to imagine: Stonehenge's celestial clockwork. Across the rolling chalk downs of southern England, on a plain often shrouded in mist, rises a circle of megaliths known to the world as Stonehenge. Its silhouette is instantly recognizable: towering sarsens capped by lintels, with smaller bluestones arranged within. Though weathered by 5 millennia, the site still speaks of hands that lifted stones weighing up to 50 tons, transported across distances of more than 100 miles. Archaeologists generally agree that construction unfolded in stages, beginning around 3000 BCE and evolving over a span of 1500 years. Yet despite the countless studies, the circle retains its air of enigma. The most striking mainstream fact is its alignment with the sky. On the summer solstice, the rising sun pierces directly over the heel stone, casting its light into the heart of the monument. On the winter solstice, the sunset aligns with equal precision. This deliberate orientation suggests a community deeply attuned to celestial rhythms, marking the turning points of the year with both ceremony and spectacle. Stonehenge may have served as a kind of solar calendar, guiding agricultural cycles and anchoring sacred festivals in time. Evidence of feasting nearby, animal bones, pottery fragments, and tools supports the idea of great gatherings, where thousands may have journeyed to witness the sky's dance above the stones. But like Gobekli Tepe before it, Stonehenge resists simple categorization. Quirky details abound. The smaller bluestones appear to originate from quarries in Wales, nearly 150 miles away. How they were moved remains hotly contested. Some argue for sledges and rafts, others for glacial transport, while fringe ideas suggest techniques now lost. One popular yet unproven notion is that the stones themselves were thought to hold healing powers, their removal part of a ritual pilgrimage toward the centre of the sacred landscape. More speculative still is the idea that Stonehenge encoded knowledge of astronomy beyond mere solstices. Some researchers claim its layout reflects lunar standstills or even eclipses, transforming it into a prehistoric observatory of remarkable sophistication. Others, more controversially, propose alignments with star systems far beyond naked eye necessity, fueling theories of lost sciences or even guidance from realms beyond our world. What cannot be denied is the human devotion embedded in these stones. Excavations reveal burials, suggesting that Stonehenge also served as a place of memory and reverence for the dead. Bones show signs of both local and distant origins, implying that people travelled from across the British Isles, and perhaps beyond, to be part of its ceremonies. The combination of ritual, astronomy, and burial makes it less a monument to a single purpose than a nexus of meanings, shifting across generations. Scholars still debate whether Stonehenge was primarily a temple to the sun, a burial ground for elites, a healing sanctuary, or a fusion of all three. Its builders, living in a world without metal tools or wheels, achieved something that resonates with uncanny power across time. Standing there at midsummer dawn, the horizon blushing with light, one cannot escape the sense that Stonehenge was more than stone and sweat. It was an attempt to bridge the human and the cosmic, the earth and the heavens, the Antikythera mechanism. In 1901, divers exploring a shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera surfaced with bronze fragments that would change our understanding of the ancient world. At first glance, the corroded gears seemed like a mass of indistinguishable scrap, but careful study over the decades revealed something extraordinary, a mechanical device of astonishing sophistication, built more than 2,000 years ago during the era of classical Greece. Now called the Antikythera mechanism, it is widely recognized as the world's first known analog computer. Mainstream archaeology tells us that the device used an intricate system of interlocking gears, over 30 in total, to predict the movements of the sun, the moon, and possibly even the 5 visible planets. It could track eclipses, anticipate phases of the moon, and align these events with the cycles of the ancient Olympic Games. The surviving fragments suggest a box roughly the size of a shoebox, with dials and inscriptions on its surface, designed not merely as a tool of science, but as an object of wonder. To build it, its makers needed knowledge of precision gearing that would not appear again in Europe until the mechanical clocks of the 14th century. And yet, mysteries endure. Who designed it? Some attribute it to followers of Archimedes, that brilliant inventor of the 3rd century BCE, whose ingenuity stretched across mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. Others suggest it was the work of Hipparchus, the great Greek astronomer who lived around the same time. The shipwreck itself dates to around 60 BCE, meaning the mechanism had already been crafted and used for decades before meeting its watery grave. Quirky details complicate the picture. X-ray imaging has revealed that the mechanism contained inscriptions, tiny lettering packed into every available surface that may offer instruction, ends for use, yet many parts remain lost, leaving scholars guessing at its full potential. Some argue it included planetary gear trains, allowing predictions of the wandering stars that fascinated ancient stargazers. Fringe theorists take the speculation further, suggesting that the Antikythera mechanism was but one of many such devices, part of a now vanished tradition of high technology suppressed or forgotten. To them, the device is evidence that our ancestors possessed knowledge far beyond what textbooks allow. Scholars still debate whether the mechanism was a unique masterpiece or part of a larger lineage of machines whose traces have simply vanished. Was it an astronomer's teaching tool, a nobleman's curiosity, or the prized possession of a ship sailing toward Rome? Its very survival is a miracle of chance, preserved by seawater and silt when countless other treasures perished. Today, standing before its fragments in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, one can almost hear the faint ticking of its gears, long stilled. The Antikythera mechanism reminds us that history is not a straight line of progress, but a landscape filled with lost peaks of genius, moments where knowledge flared brightly, only to be extinguished, waiting to be rediscovered centuries later. Nazca Lines from the sky. Stretching across the arid plains of southern Peru, etched into the desert crust, lie hundreds of enormous geoglyphs, animals, plants, and geometric designs so vast they can only be fully grasped from the air. Known as the Nazca Lines, they were created between 500 BCE and 500 CE by the Nazca culture, whose artisans scraped away the sun-darkened topsoil to reveal the pale earth beneath. Some figures are simple straight lines running for miles, others are complex shapes, a hummingbird, a monkey, a spider, even what appears to be a vast humanoid waving from the hillside. Collectively, they form one of humanity's most enduring puzzles. The mainstream fact is clear: these lines were made by deliberate design, requiring coordination and skill. Wooden stakes found at some sites suggest that the Nazca people used simple surveying methods to plot the enormous forms. Without aircraft, they could not have seen their work in full, but they likely relied on scaled drawings and walked measurements to bring their designs to life. Scholars propose practical purposes as well. Many of the lines align with water sources or horizon points where the sun and stars rise, hinting at connections to both agriculture and ritual. Yet, the sheer scale of the geoglyphs fuels endless speculation. Why create images so large they are invisible from the ground? Some anthropologists argue they were processional pathways meant to be walked during rituals to invoke rainfall in the harsh desert climate. Others suggest the figures were offerings to gods above, giant symbols visible to deities dwelling in the sky. Quirky details include the monkey's spiral tail, which aligns with astronomical cycles, and the spider, which some believe references a species associated with fertility and water. Fringe theories, inevitably, take the mystery further. The most famous suggests that the Nazca Lines were landing strips for extraterrestrial visitors, an idea popularized in the mid-20th century and one that continues to capture the imagination of popular culture. Proponents point to the long, straight runways carved across the desert as evidence, though archaeologists counter that these alignments are more symbolic than practical for flight. What is not disputed is the astonishing endurance of these lines. The arid climate and near absence of wind have preserved them for centuries, making them among the most resilient artworks on Earth. Walking among them today, the lines seem faint, almost unremarkable. But from the vantage of the air, a perspective the Nazca themselves never enjoyed, the designs emerge in their full majesty as though meant for the eyes of gods. Scholars still debate whether the Nazca Lines were ritualistic pathways, astronomical markers, or grand messages to unseen powers. Their true purpose remains as elusive as the desert rain the Nazca so desperately sought, and so, across the barren plateau, the lines stretch silently toward the horizon, a riddle written on the earth itself. The Sphinx's water erosion. At the edge of the Giza plateau, crouched like a sentinel guarding the pyramids, the Great Sphinx gazes eastward toward the rising sun. With the body of a lion and the head of a pharaoh, it is one of the most iconic monuments of ancient Egypt. Carved directly from bedrock, the Sphinx stretches some 240 feet in length, a fusion of art and geology on a monumental scale. Traditionally, it is attributed to Pharaoh Khafra around 2500 BCE, though the truth of its age remains one of history's most contentious debates. The mainstream fact, based on archaeological context and stylistic comparison, is that the Sphinx was created during the Old Kingdom, aligned with Khafra's pyramid complex. Its face, though eroded, bears the hallmarks of royal portraiture, linking it to the pharaoh's image. Ancient quarry marks nearby also support this time frame. Yet even within mainstream circles, the monument's purpose remains unclear. Was it simply a guardian, a cosmic lion, or something more esoteric, a symbol of divine kingship stretching across eternity? The controversy begins with the body itself. In the early 1990s, geologist Robert Schoch examined the Sphinx and concluded that the weathering patterns, deep vertical fissures and rounded contours, were more consistent with water erosion than wind. If correct, this would suggest that the monument dates back to a time when heavy rains drenched the region, thousands of years earlier than the Old Kingdom. Such a conclusion would rewrite not just Egyptian chronology, but the entire timeline of civilization. Egyptologists counter that the marks can be explained by centuries of wind and sand, coupled with periodic flooding from the Nile. Still, the debate remains heated, bridging geology and archaeology in ways rarely seen. Quirky details add to the Sphinx's allure. For centuries, the statue was buried up to its shoal, in sand, with only the head visible. Local legends spoke of treasures hidden beneath its paws. In fact, a small chamber has been found there, though its contents remain a matter of speculation. Some fringe theorists claim that the Hall of Records, a mythical library said to preserve the wisdom of Atlantis, lies hidden within or beneath the monument. No such library has ever been found, but the idea persists in popular imagination. Scholars still debate whether the Sphinx's erosion truly signals an earlier epoch, whether its face has been recarved, and whether hidden chambers might yet lie undiscovered. Its alignment with the rising sun on the equinox hints at cosmic intent, suggesting a deeper layer of symbolism. Standing before it today, its gaze eternal, the Sphinx seems less a statue than a riddle carved in stone. It asks us not only to question the skill of its makers, but the very foundations of our timeline. Whether lion, king, or ancient enigma, the Sphinx endures, its silence as loud as the mysteries it conceals. The Baghdad Battery. In the 1930s, workers excavating near modern-day Baghdad unearthed a collection of curious clay jars, each containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. Dating to the Parthian or Sasanian periods, roughly 200 BCE to 250 CE, these artifacts became known as the Baghdad Battery. To most, they resembled little more than simple vessels, yet when researchers experimented with replicas, they discovered that the jars could generate a small electric current if filled with acidic liquid, such as vinegar or lemon juice. The possibility that ancient craftsmen may have stumbled upon electricity was both startling and deeply unsettling. The mainstream fact is straightforward. The jars are real, their components authentic, and they could indeed function as primitive galvanic cells. Whether they were meant to do so is another question entirely. Many archaeologists argue that the jars may have been simple storage containers, perhaps used for scrolls or sacred texts. Others suggest they were designed for electroplating, using mild currents to coat objects in a thin layer of precious metal. Small, gilded artifacts from the region give some weight to this idea, though no conclusive evidence links them directly to the jars. Quirky details feed the debate. Some jars were sealed with asphalt plugs, as though to contain liquid. The copper cylinders were carefully fitted, hinting at intentional design. Replicas, when tested, have produced voltages between 0.5 and 2 volts, not enough to power machinery, but enough to tingle the skin or deposit a thin film of silver or gold. For many, the thought of Parthian artisans wielding rudimentary batteries centuries before the modern age feels like a revelation, as if a fragment of forgotten science had slipped through the cracks of time. Fringe theories take the notion much further. Some claim the Baghdad Battery was evidence of an ancient energy network lost to history, perhaps tied to technologies as advanced as our own. Others weave it into broader narratives of vanished civilizations or extraterrestrial guidance, imagining the jars as fragments of a much larger and more complex system. These claims, though captivating, stretch well beyond the modest capacities of the artifacts themselves. Scholars still debate whether the Baghdad Battery was a deliberate experiment in harnessing electricity, a ritual object misunderstood by modern eyes, or simply a mundane container that happened to resemble something extraordinary. No texts from the period mention such devices, leaving us only with silent jars and endless speculation. In a quiet museum case, the Baghdad Battery appears unimpressive, just clay, copper and iron, yet its mystery lies not in what it definitively was, but in what it might have been. Was it a spark of genius, flickering centuries before Benjamin Franklin flew his kite? Or are we, in our fascination with the past, projecting our own technologies backward, eager to see ourselves reflected in the ancient world? The jars themselves offer no answers, only the faint possibility of electricity humming through forgotten hands. The Library of Alexandria, on the shores of the Mediterranean, in the bustling port city of Alexandria, once stood a beacon of human knowledge unlike any other. Founded in the 3rd century BCE under the Ptolemaic dynasty, the Library of Alexandria was said to house hundreds of thousands of scrolls, perhaps as many as 500,000, collected from across the known world. Greek philosophy, Egyptian rituals, Mesopotamian mathematics, Indian medicine, and records from distant lands may all have been gathered there, stored within great halls lined with papyrus. For centuries, the library has symbolized the pinnacle of ancient learning and the tragedy of its loss. The mainstream fact is that the library did exist, though its scale and contents remain matters of conjecture. Historical accounts describe how ships docking at Alexandria were searched, and their manuscripts copied or confiscated for the library's growing collection. It was part of the Mausoleum, a larger research institution where scholars worked, debated, and studied. Figures like Euclid, the father of geometry, and Archimedes of Syracuse may have had their works preserved or consulted there. Yet, the exact fate of the library is uncertain, shrouded in conflicting reports. One popular account holds that Julius Caesar's forces accidentally set fire to part of the city in 48 BCE, destroying the library. Later writers, however, suggest that damage came gradually over centuries, through neglect, shifting regimes, and waves of religious conflict. By the time of the Roman and Byzantine periods, whatever had once stood as the greatest repository of ancient wisdom had vanished. The quirky and haunting detail is that we may never know what was lost. Some imagine treatises on steam engines, forgotten maps of the world, or entire schools of philosophy erased without a trace. A handful of tantalizing fragments, such as Hero of Alexandria's mechanical inventions, hint at what could have been more widely known. Fringe speculation runs rampant. Was the library's destruction accidental, or was it deliberate? A suppression of knowledge too dangerous to endure. Some believe texts on lost civilizations, Atlantis among them, were hidden within. Others imagine scientific breakthroughs centuries ahead of their time, from advanced medicine to astronomical charts of staggering accuracy. Without evidence, these remain dreams, but the very absence of proof fuels the imagination. Scholars still debate whether the Library of Alexandria was ever as grand as legend suggests, or whether its image has grown in the telling. Yet the loss is mourned not simply for what was destroyed, but for what it represents, the fragility of knowledge, the ease with which centuries of wisdom can vanish in smoke and silence. Standing in Alexandria today, amid the bustle of a modern port, one finds little trace of the ancient wonder. Yet the story of the library lives on, echoing in every archive and data server humanity now builds, as if we are forever chasing the ghost of that first great dream, to gather all human knowledge in one place and keep it safe from the flames. Atlantis and the sunken memory. Across the centuries, few tales have stirred the imagination quite like that of Atlantis. First described by the philosopher Plato in the 4th century BCE, Atlantis was said to be a mighty island empire beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. In Plato's telling, its people possessed wealth, power, and advanced knowledge until hubris brought about their downfall. In a single day and night of misfortune, the island sank beneath the waves, leaving only story behind. Whether allegory or memory, the tale endures as one of history's great enigmas. The mainstream fact is that Atlantis appears only in Plato's dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. Nowhere else in Greek literature is it mentioned, leading most scholars to conclude that it was a moral fable, not a historical record. Plato used it to contrast Athens' virtues against the decadence of a fictional foe, a narrative device rather than a chronicle. Yet the sheer detail of his description, its concentric canals, gleaming temples, and lush fields, invites speculation that he drew on older traditions, perhaps stories passed down from Egypt. Quirky interpretations abound. Some argue Atlantis was inspired by the eruption of Thera, modern Santorini, around 1600 BCE, which devastated the Minoan civilization with fire, ash, and tsunamis. Others point to Troy, Crete, or even Tartessos in Spain as possible prototypes. In more radical theories, Atlantis is placed across the globe, in the Caribbean, beneath Antarctica, or hidden in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. Each theory reflects the allure of a lost golden age, a memory of something just beyond reach. Fringe speculation, of course, takes Atlantis far beyond Plato. In the 19th and 20th centuries, mystics like Helena Blavatsky and Edgar Cayce claimed the Atlanteans possessed crystal power, flight, or even energy beams that dwarfed modern technology. Some wove it into theories of ancient aliens, suggesting Atlantis was a colony of beings from the stars. These visions, though unsupported by evidence, keep Atlantis alive in popular imagination, a canvas upon which every generation paints its dreams and fears. Scholars still debate whether Plato invented Atlantis entirely, drew from dim memories of real disasters, or preserved an echo of something genuinely forgotten. The lack of archaeological proof leans toward myth, yet human history is riddled with vanished cities rediscovered after centuries. Troy, once thought fictional, is now a matter of stone and soil. Could Atlantis, too, hide beneath the sea, waiting to surface? Standing at the edge of the ocean, waves pounding against the shore, it is easy to see why Atlantis endures. The sea holds secrets, swallowing empires and scattering their ruins across the deep. Whether fable, memory, or something in between, Atlantis reminds us that civilizations rise and fall, and that sometimes their greatest legacy is not their monuments, but the stories that refuse to die. The Olmec colossal heads, deep in the jungles of southern Mexico, half buried in the soil and shrouded by centuries of foliage, enormous stone faces stare silently into the present. These are the Olmec colossal heads, carved from massive basalt boulders between 1200 and 400 BCE. Each head stands between 5 and 11 feet tall, some weighing up to 40 tons. With their stern expressions, broad noses, and helmet-like headdresses, they remain among the most striking artifacts of Mesoamerica and among its most mysterious. The mainstream fact is that the Olmecs are recognized as one of the earliest complex civilizations in the Americas, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica. They flourished along the Gulf Coast, building ceremonial centers, trading widely, and laying cultural foundations later developed by the Maya and Aztec. The colossal heads are thought to represent rulers, immortalized in stone to project power and presence across generations. Their individuality, the distinct features carved into each, supports this view. Yet questions linger. How did a society without beasts of burden, wheels, or metal tools transport such massive stones from quarries as far as 50 miles away? The sheer logistics suggest not only immense effort, but also an advanced system of organisation. Quirky details deepen the intrigue. The helmets carved onto the heads may depict ball game gear, ceremonial attire, or even symbolic headdresses of unknown meaning. Some heads are buried deliberately, perhaps ritually decommissioned at the end of an era. Fringe interpretations, as always, stretch the possibilities. Some claim the faces bear features that hint at distant contacts, African, Asian, or Polynesian, sparking debates about transoceanic voyages in antiquity. Others suggest the heads reflect memories of gods or beings from beyond, frozen in stone as ancestral protectors. These ideas remain speculative, yet the enigmatic presence of the heads makes them fertile ground for alternative theories. Scholars still debate whether the heads were simply dynastic monuments, markers of sacred ball courts, or part of a more elaborate ritual landscape. No inscriptions survive to explain their purpose, leaving interpretation to the silent testimony of the stones themselves. The Olmec writing system, only partially deciphered, offers no clear answers. Standing before one of these colossal faces today, its gaze unyielding, one cannot help but feel the weight of forgotten authority. The Olmecs vanished long before the Aztecs rose, their cities swallowed by time, their rulers' names lost. Yet the stone heads endure, guardians of a memory we can only half reconstruct. They remind us that power seeks permanence, and that even when cultures fade, their monuments may outlast the very reasons they were made. Easter Island's walking giants. Far out in the Pacific Ocean, on a remote volcanic outcrop known as Rapa Nui, stand nearly 900 monumental statues, the Moai, towering up to 33 feet tall and weighing as much as 80 tons. These stone giants dominate the island's windswept slopes. Carved between 1100 and 1600 CE by the Rapa Nui people, the Moai embody both artistry and mystery, their solemn faces gazing inland as if watching over the living. The mainstream fact is that the statues were quarried from volcanic tuff at Rano Raraku and then transported across the island to their ahu, stone platforms where they were erected. Archaeological evidence suggests that ropes, sledges, and coordinated labour allowed communities to walk the statues upright in a rocking motion, inching them forward with careful choreography. This ingenious method, tested successfully in modern experiments, demonstrates how human will and creativity could move such giants without modern machinery. And yet, the legends add a stranger note. Local oral traditions speak of the Moai walking on their own, animated by mana, the spiritual power of chiefs or priests. The statues were not merely stone, but vessels of authority, guardians embodying ancestral presence. Quirky details abound. Some Moai wear red stone hats called pukao, balanced atop their heads, their function still debated. Others were deliberately toppled during times of conflict, perhaps in symbolic acts of defiance. Fringe theories seize on the improbable scale of the statues and the isolation of the island. How could a small community with limited resources manage such feats? Some suggest the involvement of advanced lost techniques, even levitation or forgotten machinery. Others, following the extraterrestrial line, imagine the moai as beacons or markers visible from the sky, though no evidence supports this more poignant. Nent is the mystery of the island's collapse. By the 18th century, when Europeans first arrived, many statues lay unfinished or overturned. Theories abound: deforestation, overpopulation, clan rivalries, and the devastating effects of contact with outsiders. The moai, once symbols of unity and reverence, became reminders of a fractured society struggling for survival. Scholars still debate whether the building of the moai accelerated ecological decline, or whether the island's downfall owed more to later European disruption. What remains certain is that the moai were more than monuments. They were living links between people, land, and ancestors. Standing on Rapa Nui today, with the vast Pacific stretching to every horizon, the moai appear both steadfast and fragile. They are walking giants, stilled in time, witnesses to triumph and tragedy alike. Whether moved by ropes, rituals, or something stranger, their presence whispers of human ambition in one of the most remote corners of the earth, a reminder that even at the world's edge people sought to touch eternity. The Voynich manuscript, locked away in the archives of Yale University's Baghdad Library, rests one of the strangest books ever discovered, the Voynich manuscript. Named after the rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich, who acquired it in 1912, the manuscript consists of some 240 vellum pages, written in an unknown script accompanied by vivid illustrations. Its looping characters resemble no known alphabet. Its pages show fantastical plants that match no species on Earth, star charts of uncertain origin, and naked women bathing in strange green pools connected by pipes. For more than a century, it has resisted every effort to decode it. The mainstream fact is that the manuscript has been carbon dated to the early 15th century, around 1404-1438 CE. This places it in late medieval Europe, a time when herbal compendia, alchemical treatises, and astronomical texts flourished. The book's structure suggests sections on botany, astronomy, cosmology, and pharmacology. Yet the script, dubbed Voynichese, has defied all linguistic analysis. It shows consistent patterns, as if it were a real language, but no one has identified its roots. Quirky details abound. Statistical analyses suggest that Voynichese follows natural language rules, with word frequencies resembling those of known tongues. And yet, no alphabet, cipher, or substitution system has unlocked it. Codebreakers from World War II, skilled at breaking German enigma ciphers, tried and failed. Modern computer algorithms have also stumbled. The plants, too, are baffling. Some resemble real herbs, others appear to be hybrids, and many defy categorization altogether. Fringe theories flourish in this vacuum. Some claim the manuscript is an elaborate hoax, a meaningless jumble designed to trick wealthy patrons. Others argue it preserves the secret knowledge of an ancient sect, recipes for immortality, lost medicines, or cosmic wisdom. A more sensational idea proposes that it records an unknown human language, now extinct, or even a non-human one. A few have gone further still, imagining it as a gift from extraterrestrials, its imagery and script beyond earthly understanding. Scholars still debate whether the Voynich manuscript is a coded alchemical text, a lost herbal compendium, or an elaborate forgery that fooled even its earliest readers. Each theory seems plausible until the next one rises, only to fall short in turn. To flip through its pages today is to enter a dreamlike world, at once familiar and alien. Stars orbit strange suns, Plants bloom in impossible shapes, and words dance in a script that mocks our attempts at comprehension. The manuscript's very refusal to yield its secrets may be its truest power. It reminds us that not everything in the past can be neatly explained, and that some mysteries remain as alive in the present as when they were first penned centuries ago. The Copper Scroll Treasure. In 1952, near the shores of the Dead Sea, archaeologists uncovered the last of the famous Dead Sea Scrolls. But unlike the fragile parchment and papyrus texts that revealed ancient prayers and prophecies, this final scroll was something entirely different. It was made of metal. Known today as the Copper Scroll, it was hammered from sheets of copper and engraved with words that shimmer with mystery. Its text does not recount scripture or ritual, but instead lists what appears to be a vast hidden treasure, 64 locations said to contain staggering amounts of gold, silver, and sacred vessels. The mainstream fact is that the Copper Scroll is real, securely dated to around 70 CE, during the turbulent years when the Romans besieged Jerusalem. It stands apart from the other Dead Sea Scrolls, both in material and in content. Scholars generally agree that it was created by members of the Jewish sect known as the Essenes, or perhaps by priests seeking to safeguard the treasures of the temple before its destruction. If authentic, the quantities described are almost unimaginable, tons of gold and silver, far exceeding what was known to be in circulation at the time. Quirky details deepen the riddle. Unlike the other scrolls, the Copper Scroll is written in a different Hebrew style, blunt and practical, almost like an inventory. It does not read like allegory, but like instructions. Dig at this place, so many cubits deep, and there you will find treasure. Modern expeditions have searched some of the described sites, but no troves have been uncovered. Some suggest the treasure was already looted, or that the instructions were deliberately misleading, designed to conceal rather than reveal. Fringe theories abound. To some, the Copper Scroll is not just a record of hidden wealth, but a clue to the fabled Ark of the Covenant, or the treasures of King Sol, Omen's temple. Others claim it is evidence of a secret brotherhood that spirited sacred objects away, preserving them for a future age. Still others imagine a conspiracy of silence, with treasures discovered long ago but kept hidden from public view. Scholars still debate whether the Copper Scroll records real caches, symbolic lists, or exaggerated claims born of desperation in a time of war. The sheer scale of the alleged treasure makes many doubt its literal truth, yet the scroll's matter-of-fact tone resists easy dismissal. Today, the Copper Scroll rests in Jordan, its surface green with oxidation, its words as clear as when they were first engraved. To read it is to feel a tantalizing pull, as if the past itself is whispering instructions to dig, to uncover, to reveal. And yet, the sands of the Judean desert keep their silence. Whether treasure or parable, the Copper Scroll remains a riddle that tempts us with the possibility that somewhere, buried deep beneath stone and soil, the riches of an ancient world still wait. Mohenjo-Daro's sudden silence. Along the banks of the Indus River, in what is now Pakistan, lie the remains of Mohenjo-Daro, one of the great cities of the ancient Indus Valley civilization. Founded around 2500 BCE, the city thrived for centuries, boasting sophisticated urban planning unmatched in its age. Streets ran in straight grids, brick houses rose in orderly rows, and an advanced drainage system carried wastewater away, a level of civic engineering rivaling that of Rome, yet millennia earlier. At its centre stood the Great Bath, a vast pool that may have been used for ritual purification. By all accounts, Mohenjo-Daro was a jewel of early urban life. And then, around 1900 BCE, it fell silent. The mainstream fact is that the city's decline is tied to the larger collapse of the Indus Valley civilization. Archaeologists point to shifts in river courses, which may have disrupted trade and agriculture. Climate change, too, may have played a role, as rainfall patterns altered and droughts spread. By the time the city was abandoned, its once thriving population had dispersed, leaving behind a ghost town of sun-baked bricks. Unlike other ancient sites, no palaces or monumental temples were found here, hinting at a society perhaps more egalitarian than its contemporaries. Quirky details spark endless fascination. In some excavations, skeletons were discovered lying as if struck down suddenly, with little sign of burial ritual. Early interpretations suggested a catastrophe, a massacre, or sudden calamity that caught the inhabitants unprepared. Later studies caution against sensational conclusions, noting that the bones span centuries and may represent ordinary deaths. Still, the image of a bustling city halted mid-stride lingers in the imagination. Fringe theories push the narrative further. Some claim Mohenjo-Daro was destroyed by a catastrophic weapon, even pointing to traces of vitrified stone, rocks fused by extreme heat, as evidence of an ancient atomic blast. This interpretation, though unsupported by geology, is fueled by passages from the Indian epics, such as the Mahabharata, which describe celestial weapons of immense power. Could myth preserve a memory of technologies now long lost? Scholars still debate whether Mohenjo-Daro's silence was caused primarily by environmental collapse, internal strife, or gradual decline. The lack of conclusive evidence leaves the city open to multiple readings, each reflecting our own modern concerns: climate change, urban fragility, or the spectre of self-destruction. Walking through its excavated streets today, one can still see wells, brick drains, and orderly courtyards, as if awaiting their inhabitants' return. The silence feels almost deliberate, a pause in history rather than its end. Mohenjo-Daro remains both a monument to human ingenuity and a reminder of how even the greatest cities can vanish, leaving behind only dust, brick, and questions. The Shroud of Turin. In the dimly lit Cathedral of Turin, Italy, a length of linen lies preserved under layers of glass and security. To the faithful, it is among the holiest relics of Christianity, the Shroud of Turin, believed by many to bear the image of Jesus Christ himself. Measuring over 14 feet long, the cloth is faintly imprinted with the front and back of a man, arms crossed, body marked with wounds consistent with crucifixion. For centuries, it has drawn pilgrims and skeptics alike, each searching for meaning in its ghostly visage. The mainstream fact is that the shroud has been carbon dated to the Middle Ages, with tests conducted in 1988 placing its origin between 1260 and 1390 CE. This would suggest it is a medieval creation, perhaps intended as a devotional image or relic. Historical records first place the shroud in France in the 14th century, when it was displayed in a small church at Léré. The Catholic Church itself has never declared it an authentic relic, only a powerful object of devotion. Yet quirks persist. The image on the shroud is not painted or dyed. Under microscopic study, it appears as a superficial discoloration of the fibres themselves, with no pigments, brushstrokes, or binders detectable. Photographs taken in 1898 revealed another surprise. The image acts like a photographic negative, with details becoming clearer when reversed, an effect unimaginable in the Middle Ages. Later analyses found traces of pollen from plants native to the Middle East, raising questions about where the cloth had travelled. Fringe theories flourish around these puzzles. Some claim the shroud is a miraculous imprint, formed at the moment of resurrection in a burst of radiant energy. Others propose it was created by an unknown medieval technique involving heat, light, or early forms of photography lost to time. A few even argue that the shroud is evidence of contact with something far stranger, an artifact not of human hands at all. Scholars still debate whether the shroud is a medieval forgery, a genuine relic from the time of Christ, or an enigmatic artifact that defies easy classification. Carbon dating remains a powerful argument, but critics note that the sample may have been taken from a repaired section of cloth, skewing the results. Meanwhile, the haunting image refuses to yield its secret. To stand before the Shroud of Turin is to confront both faith and science at once. It is a relic that bridges centuries of devotion and doubt, a piece of linen that bears not only a faint human form, but also the weight of our longing to see, to believe, and to know. Whether holy relic, medieval masterpiece, or something stranger, the shroud endures as one of history's most haunting mysteries, the Piri Reis map. In 1929, scholars cataloguing the archives of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace uncovered a fragment of parchment that would ignite decades of intrigue. It was a map drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. What startled researchers was not simply its age, but its detail. The surviving portion depicted parts of Europe, Africa, and the Americas, coastlines drawn with surprising accuracy just 2 decades after Columbus's first voyage. Even more perplexing, some claim the map shows stretches of coastline that should not have been known at the time, including hints of Antarctica centuries before its official discovery. The mainstream fact is that Piri Reis himself tells us how he compiled the map. In notes written on the parchment, he explained that he drew from 20 charts and Mappae Mundi, including Portuguese, Spanish, and even ancient Greek sources. His access to a wide array of seafaring knowledge explains much of the map's precision. What makes it so remarkable is not necessarily secret knowledge, but the synthesis of information at a time when cartography was in rapid evolution. Still, quirky details catch the eye. The depiction of South America's eastern coast appears uncannily accurate for the early 16th century, showing features explorers had scarcely charted. The Caribbean islands, too, are drawn with unusual care, though distorted in places. Most tantalizing is the southern portion of the map, where some interpret a landmass resembling Antarctica, drawn without its ice cap. Mainstream scholars caution that this may simply be a misrepresentation of South America, stretched by the limits of available data. Yet the resemblance has fueled speculation for nearly a century. Fringe theories flourish here. Some argue that Piri Reis must have drawn upon maps far older than those he acknowledged, charts preserved from a lost civilization with advanced geographical knowledge. Others claim the map is evidence that Antarctica was indeed explored in antiquity, long before ice entombed its shores. In more speculative circles, it is cited as proof of ancient contact with extraterrestrial or hyper-advanced visitors who shared their cartographic wisdom. Scholars still debate how to interpret the anomalies of the Piri Reis map. Was it a brilliant but flawed synthesis of known charts, or a window into knowledge that somehow slipped through the cracks of time? The parchment itself, with its inscriptions in Ottoman Turkish and its careful artistry, roots it firmly in the age of exploration, and yet the echoes of something older linger in its outlines. To gaze upon the Piri Reis map today is to feel both admiration and unease. It is a testament to the skill of sailors who braved unknown seas, but also a whisper from the edges of history, suggesting that the world may have been known in ways we have forgotten. Whether anomaly or artifact of genius, the map challenges us to consider what other fragments of knowledge may still lie hidden in archives, waiting to redraw our understanding of the past. The Great Zimbabwe Ruins. In the rolling hills of southeastern Africa, surrounded by acacia trees and golden grasslands, stand the monumental stone walls of Great Zimbabwe. Built between the 11th and 15th centuries, this vast complex once served as the heart of a powerful kingdom. Its most iconic structure is the Great Enclosure, a massive elliptical wall over 30 feet high and running more than 800 feet in circumference, built entirely without mortar. The craftsmanship is precise, granite blocks fitted together with a skill that speaks to both artistry and authority. Yet, for centuries, the origins of these ruins were obscured, even deliberately denied. The mainstream fact is that Great Zimbabwe was the capital of a thriving Shona civilization that controlled trade routes linking the African interior to the Swahili coast. From here, gold, ivory, and cattle wealth were exchanged for Chinese porcelain, Persian glassware, and Arabian beads, evidence of a network that reached across continents. Archaeological excavations have uncovered royal residences, ceremonial sites, and artifacts that testify to both political power and cultural sophistication. Far from being isolated, Great Zimbabwe was a vibrant centre in the medieval world. But quirks in its history of interpretation tell another story. When European colonists first encountered the ruins in the 19th century, many refused to believe that Africans could have built such monumental architecture. Theories arose attributing the walls to Phoenicians, Arabs, or even biblical figures like King Solomon. This denial was not rooted in evidence, but in colonial prejudice, seeking to erase local achievement in favour of foreign origins. Only later, with more systematic archaeology, was the truth restored. The Shona people had built Great Zimbabwe, and its legacy belongs firmly to Africa. Fringe theories, however, continue to weave their threads. Some writers link the site to the legendary land of Ophir, said in the Bible to supply Solomon with gold. Others speculate about ancient visitors who taught the locals advanced masonry techniques. Even extraterrestrial theories surface, with the walls interpreted as fortifications or markers for otherworldly travellers. These interpretations, though captivating to some, distract from the real marvel, a society that achieved greatness through its own ingenuity. Scholars still debate the precise reasons for Great Zimbabwe's decline in the 15th century. Environmental pressures, overgrazing, political shifts, and the rise of rival centres may all have played roles. What is clear is that by the time Europeans arrived centuries later, the once great city had fallen silent, its walls standing as empty sentinels of a lost age. Walking through the ruins today, among soaring granite walls and silent stone towers, one feels both awe and melancholy. Great Zimbabwe is a reminder of civilizations that flourished beyond the familiar centres of Europe or Asia. It stands as proof that human genius is universal, and that the story of history is far broader than the fragments we are often told. The stones, stacked with patient precision, speak not of outsiders, but of ancestors who left their mark on the land, defying both time and prejudice. The Dogu figurines of Japan. In the cold soil of northern Japan, archaeologists have uncovered thousands of small clay figures, each with wide hips, elaborate markings, and, most strikingly, enormous goggle-like eyes. These artifacts, known as Dogu figurines, date back to the Jomon period, roughly 14,000 to 300 BCE. Standing just a few inches tall, they seem almost alive, as though caught mid-gesture. Their precise function is unknown, but they remain among the most enigmatic relics of prehistoric Japan. The mainstream fact is that Dogu are thought to have been ritual objects. Many have been found broken, often deliberately, suggesting they were used in ceremonies connected to fertility, healing, or protection. Their exaggerated hips and breasts point to themes of motherhood and birth, while their intricate patterns may symbolize tattoos or clothing. They reflect a society deeply connected to both nature and spirituality, crafting figures that embodied hopes and fears in clay. Yet the quirky details make them unforgettable. Some Dogu wear what looks like helmets or armour, their faces shielded by those iconic oversized eyes, leading some to nickname them space-suited figures. Others resemble beings with elongated heads or abstract, almost mechanical features. This strangeness has fueled speculation well beyond the bounds of archaeology. Fringe theories have embraced the Dogu wholeheartedly. Ancient astronaut enthusiasts point to their goggle-like eyes as evidence of protective lenses, imagining that the Jomon people encountered beings in suits not unlike those worn by modern astronauts. Others argue the figurines depict gods descended from the heavens, remembered in miniature form. While mainstream archaeology firmly resists such interpretations, the uncanny design of the Dogu ensures these ideas persist in popular imagination. Scholars still debate whether the figurines were linked primarily to fertility rituals, shamanic practices, or symbolic destruction meant to release spiritual energy. Their sheer variety, thousands of unique forms across centuries, suggests they held multiple meanings, shifting with time and place. No written records remain to explain them, leaving us with clay forms as our only guide. To hold a Dogu figurine, with its delicate curves and haunting gaze, is to feel both intimacy and strangeness. These small figures, fragile yet enduring, carry within them the mysteries of a society that left no great monuments or written chronicles, only these uncanny emissaries from the past. Whether seen as sacred icons, symbolic vessels, or visions of something otherworldly, the Dogu remind us that the human imagination has always stretched toward the unknown. The crystal skulls. Across the 19th and 20th centuries, a series of gleaming artifacts emerged from private collections and curio cabinets, intricately carved crystal skulls fashioned from clear or milky quartz. Most were attributed to Mesoamerican origins, Aztec, Mixtec, or Maya, and quickly acquired an aura of mystery. The largest, weighing several pounds, shimmered with eerie luminosity, their hollow eyes catching the light like something alive. Almost immediately, they became objects of fascination, blending archaeology, legend, and the supernatural. The mainstream fact is less sensational. Scientific testing has shown that many of the most famous skulls were likely created in Europe during the 19th century, using modern tools rather than pre-Columbian methods. Their supposed provenance, discovered in ancient temples or bought from indigenous communities, was often exaggerated by collectors eager to enhance their value. Still, smaller and less ornate crystal carvings from authentic Mesoamerican contexts do exist, suggesting that crystal was indeed a material of spiritual importance in the Americas. Quirky details add to their magnetism. Even modern replicas reveal how difficult it is to carve quartz without shattering it. Some skulls appear polished against the natural grain, a process that would have taken immense patience if performed with only primitive tools. Their uncanny resemblance to the human form makes them more than ornaments. They seem charged with presence, like faces frozen in eternal silence. Fringe theories transformed them into icons of lost knowledge. Some claimed the skulls were relics from Atlantis, repositories of ancient wisdom encoded in crystal lattices. Others insisted they were gifts from extraterrestrial visitors, left behind as tools of communication or power. In the 20th century, tales circulated of 13 master skulls that, when united, would reveal secrets of the universe. These ideas, though unsupported by archaeology, spread widely in popular culture, cementing the skull's place in the imagination. Scholars still debate how much truth lies within the legends. While the grander claims are almost certainly modern inventions, the fascination with crystal reflects real traditions of sacred stones in Mesoamerica, where obsidian, jade, and quartz were prized for their spiritual resonance. The skull, symbol of both death and transformation, may have been a fitting medium for embodying cosmic ideas. To gaze into a crystal skull today is to feel an uncanny blend of science and myth. Light refracts within, scattering rainbows that seem almost alive. Whether a forgery, a sacred relic, or a symbol of mysteries yet untold, each skull captures the timeless human desire to peer into death's face and find not emptiness but meaning. The Dropa stones, high in the rugged mountains of eastern Tibet, amid caves that seem more legend than history, a peculiar discovery was reported in the mid-20th century. Hundreds of small stone discs, each etched with delicate grooves spiralling toward the centre. These objects, now known as the Dropa stones, were said to measure about a foot across, with a hole in the middle like an ancient phonograph record. Their story, preserved largely in scattered reports, remains one of archaeology's strangest and most disputed mysteries. The mainstream fact is slippery here, for no Dropa stones can be found in recognised museum collections today, and much of the tale traces back to a 1960s article in a Russian science magazine. The story goes that Chinese archaeologists unearthed the discs in the 1930s, inside caves that also contained skeletons of diminutive beings with unusually large skulls. The grooves, under microscopic study, were allegedly discovered to be tiny hieroglyphs, later translated as telling the story of a people from the stars who crash-landed on Earth. The so-called Dropa, according to the tale, found refuge among the local tribes, where they eventually died out. Quirky details make the legend irresistible. Accounts claim that the grooves on the stones produced faint electrical charges when tested, as though they held some unusual energy. Others describe drawings on the cave walls depicting celestial objects and oddly proportioned beings. Yet none of this evidence has been verifiably preserved. The Dropa stones themselves have slipped into obscurity, surfacing in anecdotal references, but never displayed for rigorous academic scrutiny. Fringe theories flourish in this vacuum. Enthusiasts of ancient astronaut ideas embrace the Dropa legend as one of the clearest accounts of extraterrestrial contact in human antiquity. To them, the stones are records left by stranded visitors, encoded in durable form to tell their story across millennia. Some even suggest the discs were once functional, devices rather than inscriptions, perhaps spinning in machines long lost. Skeptics counter that the entire tale is a modern myth, woven from Cold War-era fascination with UFOs and fueled by mistranslation, exaggeration, or outright invention. Scholars still debate whether the Dropa stones ever truly existed as described, or whether they belong to the realm of folklore masquerading as archaeology. Without physical specimens available for study, the line between artifact and fable blurs completely. What remains is the enduring allure of the story itself, a narrative of contact, loss, and mystery etched in stone. To imagine the Dropa stones is to picture fragile discs lying in the dust of a Himalayan cave, silent but inscribed with voices not our own. Whether invention or revelation, the legend reminds us of humanity's constant yearning to connect the earthly with the cosmic, to find in stone and myth the trace of visitors who might have walked among us. The Tunguska explosion. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, a blinding flash lit the skies above central Siberia. Moments later, a colossal shockwave tore through the forests near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River, flattening some 80 million trees across more than 800 square miles. Witnesses reported a fireball brighter than the sun, followed by a thunderous roar that shook the ground. Known today as the Tunguska event, it remains the largest impact-like explosion in recorded history, yet no crater was ever found. The mainstream fact is that most scientists attribute Tunguska to the airburst of a comet or asteroid, perhaps 100 to 200 feet across, entering the atmosphere at immense speed. The object likely disintegrated 5 to 10 miles above the Earth's surface, releasing energy equivalent to 15 megatons of TNT, about 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Such an explanation fits the blast pattern, the eyewitness reports, and the absence of an impact crater. but quirky details keep the debate alive. Expeditions to the site decades later found trees lying in a radial pattern, yet many at ground zero remained standing upright, their branches stripped bare. Local tales spoke of glowing skies for weeks, as if the heavens themselves had caught fire. Some hunters described strange burned stones, though none were conclusively linked to the event. And, curiously, scientific expeditions did not reach the remote site until 1927, nearly 20 years after the blast, leaving questions to fester in the meantime. Fringe theories have filled the gaps. Some claim Tunguska was caused by a fragment of antimatter annihilating in the atmosphere, or a miniature black hole passing through the Earth. Others propose it was the accidental test of Nikola Tesla's wireless energy experiments, beamed from his Wardenclyffe Tower. UFO enthusiasts suggest the illusion was the result of an alien craft colliding with our planet, a desperate attempt to avert an even greater catastrophe. While evidence for these theories is slim to none, they persist, nourished by the sheer strangeness of an explosion so vast and so unexplained at the time. Scholars still debate finer details, whether the culprit was a stony asteroid or an icy comet, whether fragments remain buried in Siberian peat bogs, and whether similar events might strike again in the future. The Tunguska event serves as a reminder that Earth is not insulated from cosmic forces, and that the sky can still unleash destruction with little warning. Standing today in the Tunguska forest, one finds a landscape that has long since healed. Trees have regrown, wildlife thrives, and the scars of 1908 are visible only in historical photographs and surviving eyewitness accounts. Yet the thought lingers, if such devastation could strike a remote Siberian wilderness, what might happen if the next cosmic visitor arrived over a city? Tunguska is both a mystery of the past and a warning of the future, a reminder that the heavens above hold both beauty and peril. The Mayan calendar long count. In the dense jungles of Central America, carved into stone stelae and inscribed on temple walls, the ancient Maya recorded their time with extraordinary precision. Among their systems, the most enigmatic is the long count calendar, a method of tracking dates that extends far beyond lifetimes, kingdoms, or even millennia. Unlike our cyclical calendars, the long count begins from a fixed starting point, corresponding to August 11th, 3114 BCE in the Gregorian calendar, and marches forward in vast cycles, weaving human history into cosmic time. The mainstream fact is that the long count was a base 20 and base 18 counting system, designed to measure units of time from days, Kayin, to nearly 400-year spans, Biakton. The inscriptions allowed the Maya to pinpoint historical events with astonishing accuracy, linking royal ceremonies, battles, and religious festivals to the movements of the heavens. Their astronomical skill was no less remarkable. They calculated the solar year to within a fraction of modern values and predicted eclipses with striking accuracy. Quirky details brought the long count into modern headlines. One of its cycles ended on December 21st, 2012, a date that, in Western imagination, became synonymous with apocalypse. As the 13th Baktun drew to a close, books, films, and internet forums declared the end of the world was at hand. In truth, for the Maya, it was simply the turning of an age, much like the odometer on a car rolling over. Far from predicting destruction, it may have been a time of renewal, when old cycles closed and new ones began. Fringe theories seized on the 2012 phenomenon. Some claimed the Maya foresaw cataclysms, asteroid impacts, solar flares, or planetary alignments that would devastate Earth. Others imagined the return of gods or extraterrestrial visitors, timed to coincide with the calendar's reset. No, none of these predictions came to pass, yet they reveal how powerfully ancient systems of thought can capture modern anxieties. Scholars still debate the deeper significance of the long count. Was it purely a practical device for recording history, or did it reflect a worldview in which human time was inseparably bound to cosmic cycles? For the Maya, the turning of the calendar was not merely bookkeeping, it was mythic, tied to stories of creation and destruction, of gods shaping and reshaping the world. Standing before a carved stela today, the glyphs weathered but legible, one feels the weight of a people who thought not just in years or decades, but in spans of thousands of years. Their calendar reminds us that civilizations can measure time in ways that stretch far beyond the narrow horizons of individual lives. The long count is less a clock than a cosmic mirror, reflecting humanity's place in the vast rhythms of the universe. The Ark of the Covenant. In the sacred texts of Judaism and Christianity, few objects hold such weight and mystery as the Ark of the Covenant. According to the Hebrew Bible, it was a chest of acacia wood overlaid with gold, crowned with 2 cherubim whose wings met at its centre. Within, it was said to house the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, Aaron's rod, and a pot of manna. More than a container, the Ark was a vessel of divine presence, carried by the Israelites through desert wanderings, across the Jordan River, and into battle, where its power was said to strike down enemies and level walls. The mainstream fact is that the Ark's description appears primarily in the Book of Exodus, dating its construction to the time of Moses, around the 13th century BCE. Historical evidence of the Ark itself, however, remains absent. By the time of the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in the 6th century BCE, it had disappeared from the biblical record, its fate unrecorded. Some scholars argue it was destroyed, looted, or hidden during this period of turmoil. The absence of physical traces leaves the Ark firmly in the realm of faith and tradition. Quirky threads of history, however, keep the mystery alive. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church claims to this day that the Ark rests in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Aksum, Ethiopia, where a single guardian monk watches over it, unseen by the outside world. Others believe it lies buried beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, concealed in tunnels that have yet to be fully explored. Medieval legends even tied the Ark to the Knights Templar, suggesting it was carried away during the Crusades and hidden in Europe. Fringe theories take bolder leaps. Some propose that the Ark was not merely a religious relic, but a technological device, an ancient capacitor capable of storing and discharging energy, explaining its fearsome reputation. Others link it to extraterrestrial intervention, describing it as a communication tool or even a weapon bestowed upon early humanity. Such ideas, while imaginative, remain speculative, fueled by the Ark's evocative aura of danger and holiness. Scholars still debate whether the Ark was a real artifact, a symbolic invention, or a blending of both, an object of memory that grew in power with retelling. What is certain is that the Ark became a central emblem of identity and divine covenant, a portable sanctuary carried through history's storms. Standing in any of the places linked to its legend, Jerusalem, Aksum, or the imagined chambers of lost temples, one feels the absence of the Ark as strongly as its presence. It remains one of history's great missing treasures, hovering between myth and material. Whether hidden, destroyed, or purely symbolic, the Ark of the Covenant continues to capture our imagination, reminding us of humanity's longing to touch the divine, the flood, myths worldwide. From Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, from the icy north to the Pacific Islands, a recurring story echoes across cultures, the tale of a great flood that wiped away humanity, sparing only a few to begin the world anew. The flood myth is among the most widespread narratives in human history, raising the question, why did so many civilizations, separated by oceans and centuries, tell the same tale? The mainstream fact is that the earliest known written version comes from Mesopotamia. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, dating to around 2000 BCE, the hero meets Utnapishtim, who recounts how the gods once sent a deluge to destroy humanity. He survived by building a massive boat, carrying family, animals, and provisions until the waters subsided. The similarities to the biblical story of Noah, written centuries later, are striking, down to the dove sent to find dry land. In Hindu tradition, Manu is warned by a fish god to build a boat before a cosmic flood. In Mesoamerica, the Aztecs told of previous worlds destroyed by water. Even indigenous peoples of North America, Polynesia, and Australia preserve flood traditions in their oral histories. Quirky details bring these myths to life. The Hopi of the American Southwest speak of survivors retreating into reed boats. In Norse mythology, the flood is not central, but the world is destined to drown in the sea at Ragnarok. In China, ancient tales speak not of a single cataclysm, but of the taming of endless floodwaters by Yu the Great, founder of the Xia dynasty. Though details differ, the rhythm is consistent. Destruction followed by renewal, chaos replaced by order. Fringe theories interpret this universality as evidence of a real global event. Perhaps the sudden rise in sea levels at the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 BCE, when melting glaciers flooded vast coastal plains. Others imagine a comet strike or shifting tectonics unleashing waves across continents. More radical voices propose that survivors of an advanced lost civilization, perhaps Atlantis, carried their memories of the flood into the mythologies of later peoples. Scholars still debate whether these stories are independent inventions, rooted in local floods, or fragments of a shared ancestral memory of ancient cataclysms. It may be that flood myths arise naturally from human experience, water as both giver and destroyer of life, rivers and seas overflowing unpredictably, teaching communities that stability is fragile. Standing on a modern shoreline, watching waves break endlessly, it is easy to see why the flood became such a powerful metaphor. The sea embodies mystery, terror, and rebirth. In every telling, the flood washes the world clean, leaving space for something new. Whether rooted in memory, metaphor, or both, these myths remind us that humanity has always lived at the mercy of nature, and that survival often depends on our ability to rebuild after the waters recede. The Cave of Altamira. In the rolling hills of northern Spain lies a cave whose ceiling once stunned the world. Discovered in 1868 and later explored in detail by Marcelino Sanz de Sautuola, the Cave of Altamira is adorned with vivid paintings created some 14,000 to 20,000 years ago. Bison, deer, horses, and wild boar leap across the stone in ochre, black, and red pigments, their forms so naturalistic that early scholars refused to believe they were prehistoric. When Sautuola's findings were first presented in 1880, critics accused him of fraud. Only later, when similar cave art was uncovered elsewhere in Europe, was Altamira vindicated, and recognised as a masterpiece of Ice Age imagination. The mainstream fact is that the paintings at Altamira were made by the Magdalenian culture, part of the wider Upper Paleolithic tradition. Using mineral pigments, bone tools, and flickering firelight, the artists created images that captured both the shape and spirit of animals central to their survival. Some panels show superimposed figures, layered over generations, as if the cave were a living canvas for communal memory. Far from primitive doodles, the art reveals a mastery of perspective, shading, and movement unmatched until much later in human history. Quirky details heighten the wonder. The cave's most famous panel, the Sistine Chapel of Prehistory, shows a herd of bison painted with such vitality that they appear to shift and breathe under the uneven surface of the rock. Traces of handprints suggest personal marks, as though individuals wished to leave behind more than images, a presence. Some chambers seem designed to echo, amplifying chants or music, hinting at ritual performance. To step inside Altamira is to feel not just the art, but an entire sensory world of light, sound, and imagination. Fringe interpretations see even more. Some propose that the cave paintings in Khe ode star maps, the animals representing constellations, their placement tied to celestial cycles. Others suggest shamanic visions, images born of trance states, capturing encounters with spirits or altered realities. Still more daring voices claim the art is evidence of contact with beings beyond the human, teaching early people to see and to create. Scholars still debate the precise purpose of the paintings. Were they hunting magic, designed to ensure success in the chase? Ceremonial offerings to animal spirits, or expressions of storytelling, identity, and community? Perhaps the answer lies in all of these at once, a blend of the practical and the spiritual inseparable in Ice Age life. Today, the original cave is closed to protect the fragile pigments, but a replica allows visitors to glimpse the power of this ancient gallery. To stand beneath those painted ceilings is to realize that 20 millennia ago, humans were already artists, dreamers, and myth-makers. Altamira reminds us that imagination is not a modern gift, but an ancient inheritance, carried in pigments across stone, echoing still in the dark. The Anunnaki and Sumerian Kings List. On clay tablets baked by the Mesopotamian sun, written in the wedge-shaped marks of cuneiform, lies one of history's most provocative records, the Sumerian Kings List. Compiled around 2100 BCE, the list names rulers stretching back thousands of years before the flood, attributing reigns of astonishing length, some lasting tens of thousands of years. Interwoven with this record are the myths of the Anunnaki, powerful deities described as descending from the heavens to shape human destiny. Together, they form one of the most fertile sources of mystery in the ancient Near East. The mainstream fact is that the Kings List blends myth and history. Archaeologists recognize that some of its later rulers, like Gilgamesh of Uruk, likely reflect real figures, though their lives were embroidered with legend. The impossibly long reigns at the beginning are seen as symbolic, perhaps marking dynasties or eras rather than literal years. The Anunnaki, meanwhile, were central figures in Mesopotamian religion, gods of sky, earth, and underworld, who oversaw the fates of mortals. The texts capture a worldview where divine will and human kingship were inseparable. Quirky details of the Kings List fascinate readers even today. After the Great Flood, the lengths of reigns diminished dramatically, as if the cosmos had reset the balance between humans and gods. Some tablets differ in order or detail, hinting at local traditions. The very survival of these texts, preserved in mud brick ruins for millennia, feels like a message passed across time. Fringe theories have transformed the Anunnaki into something far stranger. In the late 20th century, writer Zecharia Sitchin popularized the idea that the Anunnaki were not gods, but extraterrestrial visitors who came from a distant planet called Nibiru. According to his interpretation, they genetically engineered humanity to mine gold for their own purposes, explaining the sudden rise of Sumerian civilization. Though scholars reject these claims, pointing out that Sitchin's translations often distort the original cuneiform, the theory has spread widely in popular culture, feeding documentaries, novels, and films. Scholars still debate the function of the Kings List itself. Was it a political tool, legitimizing rulers by linking them to divine order? Was it a memory of real floods and dynasties, refracted through myth? Or was it a fusion of both, history shaped into sacred story? The answer may never be clear, but the text's endurance shows how deeply humans have always sought to link their present to cosmic origins. To trace your fingers across the wedge-shaped marks of the Kings List is to touch both myth and record, divine and mortal. The Anunnaki, whether seen as gods, symbols, or something else entirely, remain a reminder of how civilizations explained their beginnings, not as random chance, but as a gift or a burden bestowed from the stars above. The Kensington Runestone, in 1898, a Swedish immigrant farmer named Olof Öhman claimed to have unearthed a curious slab of stone while clearing his land near Kensington, Minnesota. The object, now known as the Kensington Runestone, measured about 30 inches tall and bore an inscription in runic characters. Its text told a startling tale. A group of Norse explorers from the 14th century far inland in North America, recording their presence and mourning the death of 10 of their companions. If genuine, the stone would rewrite the history of European exploration of the continent. The mainstream fact is that the stone's inscription has long been doubted. Linguists argue that the runes include forms not in use in the 14th century, but instead resemble 19th century Swedish variants familiar to Scandinavian immigrants. Many scholars consider the stone a hoax, perhaps carved by Öhman or someone in his community. Yet the mystery persists, for the runes are not simply gibberish, they form a coherent message, one that captures the imagination of anyone who reads it. Quirky details complicate the case. The inscription describes a party of 30 Norsemen travelling westward from Vinland, encountering tragedy, and leaving behind this carved record. The stone itself was found tangled in the roots of a tree, which some claimed indicated great age. Supporters of authenticity point to weathering on the stone and argue that it may indeed predate Öhman's lifetime. And over the years, scattered evidence of Norse presence in North America, most famously the Viking settlement at Lonzo Meadows in Newfoundland, has kept the possibility alive that Norsemen ventured far deeper inland than we know. Fringe theories expand on this hope. Some argue that Norse explorers mapped much of the interior of North America centuries before Columbus. Others see the runestone as part of a suppressed story, evidence deliberately dismissed to preserve the narrative of later European discovery. A handful of enthusiasts even suggest links between Norse travellers and Native American legends, weaving together oral traditions and runic carvings into a story of forgotten encounters. Scholars still debate the Kensington Runestone with surprising intensity. For most, it remains a 19th century creation, born of immigrant pride and a desire to connect new land with old heritage. For others, it is an enduring riddle, one that refuses to settle neatly into forgery or fact. To stand before the stone today, its runes carefully etched yet weathered by time, is to feel the weight of possibility. Was it the desperate message of explorers far from home, carved into stone as their only chance at memory? Or was it the playful invention of settlers seeking to root themselves in America's past? Whether hoax or history, the Kensington Runestone reminds us that the line between myth and record can be as thin as the stroke of a chisel. The Coral Castle enigma, in the sweltering heat of southern Florida, tucked among palms and quiet backroads, stands a strange fortress of coral stone. Known as Coral Castle, it was built almost single-handedly by a Latvian immigrant named Edward Leeds-Kalnin between 1923 and 1951. The structure is a labyrinth of walls, towers, and furniture, all carved from massive blocks of oolitic limestone, some weighing over 30 tons. What astonishes visitors is not only the scale of the work, but the mystery of how one man, working largely in secret, managed to move and position such enormous stones with apparent ease. The mainstream fact is that Leeds-Kalnin, though eccentric, was a skilled craftsman who used basic engineering techniques. Lever systems, pulleys, and sheer determination could, in theory, explain how he raised the heavy stones. Photographs taken during his lifetime show tripods and chains that suggest conventional methods, albeit applied with remarkable ingenuity. He worked mostly at night using lantern light, which only deepened the sense of mystery surrounding his methods. Yet quirky details fuel endless speculation. Some of the stones fit together with extraordinary precision, as though locked by invisible joints. The castle features a perfectly balanced 9-ton gate that once swung effortlessly with a gentle push of the finger. Visitors marvel at how Leedskalnin, a man of slight build, with no formal training in engineering, achieved such feats alone. His cryptic writings, particularly his booklet Magnetic Current, add another layer, hinting that he may have discovered unusual principles of magnetism or energy. Fringe theories take his secrecy as evidence of lost or forbidden knowledge. Some suggest Leedskalnin rediscovered techniques used by the builders of the Great Pyramids, harnessing Earth's magnetic fields or sound vibrations to move stone. Others Waktsaikas spur of extraterrestrial influence, portraying him as a man who stumbled upon secrets beyond his age. In this telling, Coral Castle is less a labour of love than a demonstration of ancient science reawakened. Scholars still debate whether the wonder lies in Leedskalnin's methods or in the myth that has grown around them. Was his achievement purely mechanical, proof of what determination and clever engineering can accomplish? Or was there more at play, knowledge half lost, rediscovered by one reclusive genius with nothing but time and obsession? Walking through Coral Castle today, past stone rocking chairs, a sundial, and a heart-shaped table, one senses both the eccentricity of its maker and the grandeur of his vision. Leedskalnin never revealed his secret, insisting only that he had discovered the laws of weight and leverage. Whether practical or mystical, his castle stands as a monument to mystery, a puzzle etched in coral, inviting us to wonder what one determined human being might be capable of when armed with obsession, solitude, and perhaps a secret too strange to share. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Among the fabled 7 wonders of the ancient world, none has stirred such enduring debate as the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Ancient writers described them as a marvel of engineering and beauty, tiered terraces rising above the city, overflowing with exotic plants and trees, watered by ingenious irrigation systems that lifted the Euphrates River skyward. To visitors, the gardens must have seemed like paradise crafted by human hands, a lush oasis suspended in the heart of Mesopotamia. The mainstream fact is that while classical sources, from Strabo to Philo of Byzantium, celebrated the gardens, archaeology has yet to confirm their existence. Babylon itself, ruled by King Nebuchadnezzar II in the 6th century BCE, was a city of grandeur with colossal walls and the famous Ishtar Gate. Nebuchadnezzar is often credited with building the gardens to please his Median wife, Amytis, who longed for the green mountains of her homeland. Yet excavations at Babylon have revealed no conclusive remains of such a wonder. Quirky details complicate the mystery. Some scholars suggest that the gardens may not have been in Babylon at all, but rather in Nineveh, the Assyrian capital further north. Ancient accounts sometimes blur locations and names, leading to theories that later writers attributed Assyrian achievements to Babylonian fame. A set of Assyrian inscriptions describes extensive terraced gardens at Nineveh, with complex aqueducts built by King Sennacherib, perhaps the true source of the legend. Fringe interpretations go further still. Some imagine the Hanging Gardens as a symbolic paradise, less a literal construction than a poetic metaphor. Others see them as remnants of a lost technology of water management, so advanced it vanished without a trace. Enthusiasts of alternative history even tie the gardens to myths of Eden, suggesting they were echoes of an even earlier divine landscape. Scholars still debate not only whether the gardens existed, but where and how. If they were real, the irrigation required would have been a staggering feat of engineering, lifting water dozens of feet in a dry climate. Some suggest screw pumps or chain devices, centuries ahead of their time, may have been used. The lack of definitive evidence leaves the Hanging Gardens suspended between history and legend, neither fully proven nor fully dismissed. Standing among the ruins of Babylon today, one sees crumbling walls, ancient gates, and echoes of a city that once stood as the jewel of Mesopotamia. The gardens, if they ever rose above these stones, have long since vanished, their trees reduced to dust, their waters dried. Yet in the imagination they bloom eternally, terraces of green cascading over baked mud brick, a miracle of human ingenuity, or perhaps simply of human storytelling. The Turin Papyrus map. In the quiet halls of the Egyptian Museum in Turin rests a tattered sheet of papyrus that, at first glance, might seem unremarkable. Yet this document, dating to around 1150 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Ramesses IV, is considered the world's oldest known topographic map. Known as the Turin Papyrus map, it charts a stretch of desert near Wadi Hammamat, marking roads, streams and quarries with astonishing detail. To gaze upon it is to see not only the land but the intent of its makers, who sought to capture the world in ink long before satellites or compasses. The mainstream fact is that the map was drawn by an Egyptian scribe for an expedition sent to quarry stone for royal monuments. It records the location of gold mines, stone outcrops, and settlements using colour to distinguish different geological features, a sophistication that amazes modern geologists. This was no abstract sketch, it was a working document for engineers, proof of Egypt's organisational might and its mastery of resource management. Quirky details give it character. The papyrus not only marks roads and quarries, but also notes the quality of the stone at each site, as if offering a catalogue for builders. Streams are drawn as winding lines in black, while hills appear as shaded mounds. For an artefact more than 3,000 years old, it is startlingly practical, almost modern in its cartographic clarity. Fringe theories, however, elevate it to something more. Some suggest the Turin map hints at knowledge beyond mere mining logistics, pointing to its almost scientific accuracy in depicting landforms. Enthusiasts of lost history argue it may be evidence of a broader, now forgotten tradition of cartography, maps that once charted far more than a single quarrying expedition. Others take the leap further, wondering if such precision implies guidance from a level of science phase, are ahead of its time, even speculating about ancient surveyors aided by technologies we no longer understand. Scholars still debate whether the map should be seen primarily as a practical document or as evidence of something deeper, a reflection of how the Egyptians conceptualized space and land. Was it a one-off masterpiece or part of a larger archive of maps that have not survived? Its survival is itself a miracle, given the fragility of papyrus and the centuries that separate us from its creation. Standing before the Turin Papyrus map today, its faded pigments still visible, one senses a bridge across time. The scribe who inked those roads and streams was not only serving his pharaoh, but also leaving behind a glimpse of how his world was measured, known, and transformed. In those careful lines, we see the same impulse that drives modern maps and satellites, the need to chart our place in the world, to transform landscape into knowledge. The Longyu Caves, in the hills of Zhejiang Province, China, beneath fields and villages, lie a set of vast man-made caverns carved directly into solid sandstone. Known as the Longyu Caves, they were first discovered in 1992 when a local farmer drained a pond that had been thought bottomless. What emerged was a colossal chamber, its walls etched with parallel chisel marks, its scale dwarfing anything expected. Since then, at least 24 such caves have been identified, each with soaring ceilings, symmetrical columns, and intricate layouts. And yet, no historical records mention their construction. The mainstream fact is that the caves are undeniably artificial, created by human hands sometime before the Tang dynasty. Their sheer size is astonishing. The largest measures over 100,000 square feet, with ceilings rising nearly 100 feet high. The total volume excavated across all caves equals millions of cubic feet of stone removed. What baffles scholars is not only the engineering, but also the silence of the historical record. No dynasty inscription, no local chronicle, no poem even hints at such monumental labour. Quirky details amplify the enigma. Every wall and ceiling bears the same uniform pattern of diagonal chiselling, as though the builders followed a strict code. Some chambers contain platforms and stairways carved seamlessly from the stone, yet they lead nowhere, serving no obvious function. The caves are remarkably well preserved, their walls smooth and dry, resisting collapse despite centuries of neglect. For the villagers who uncovered them, it was as if an entire underground city had been hidden beneath their feet. Fringe theories flourish in the absence of answers. Some suggest the Longu caves were royal tombs, never completed or later forgotten. Others imagine they were reservoirs, though the lack of waterproofing and signs of water use argue against this. More speculative voices claim they were built as underground temples, designed for rituals lost to time, or as shelters from catastrophes, whether floods, wars, or celestial events. A few even see them as remnants of an advanced, now vanished civilization, their builders' names erased, but their craft immortalized in stone. Scholars still debate the purpose and date of the Longu caves. Some argue for the Qin or Han dynasties, citing their engineering ambition, while others suspect a much earlier origin. Without inscriptions or artifacts, the question remains suspended, the caves a silent puzzle beneath the earth. To stand in a Longu chamber today is to feel the weight of the unknown pressing from every wall. The parallel chisel marks create a strange rhythm, as if the builders left behind not just stonework but a coded message. The silence is profound, broken only by footsteps echoing through the vastness. Whatever their function, the Longu caves remain one of the world's most astonishing enigmas, a reminder that even in one of the most documented civilizations on Earth, mysteries can still lie hidden, waiting for light. The Roman dodecahedra. Across Europe from Britain to Hungary, archaeologists have unearthed peculiar bronze objects dating to the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE. Each one is a hollow geometric form with 12 flat pentagonal faces, small knobs at the corners, and circular holes of varying sizes on each face. These artifacts, known as Roman dodecahedra, are about the size of a fist, and dozens have been discovered, yet not a single ancient text mentions them. Their purpose remains entirely unknown. The mainstream fact is that the dodecahedra are real, consistently dated to the Roman period, and found in contexts ranging from military sites to civilian settlements. Many are surprisingly well crafted, with symmetrical holes and precise casting. Their distribution is curious. Most have been discovered in the northern provinces of the Roman Empire, particularly in Gaul and Britain, rather than in Rome itself. Despite their widespread presence, no definitive explanation has ever been agreed upon. Quirky theories abound even among cautious scholars. Some suggest they were used as candlestick holders, the holes allowing light to scatter. Others propose they served as measuring devices for distance or surveying, perhaps for calibrating pipes or calculating angles. A few argue they may have been used in knitting, producing uniform glove fingers when wool was looped through the holes. Experimental archaeologists have even tested this idea, finding it plausible, though not conclusive. Fringe interpretations, unsurprisingly, take the enigma further. To some, the dodecahedra were mystical or ritual objects, their geometric perfection linked to sacred numerology. Others claim they were astronomical tools, used to track the movement of the sun or stars. And in the wilder reaches of speculation, they are portrayed as relics of alien technology, devices whose function we can no longer comprise. Forgotten after contact with otherworldly teachers. Scholars still debate whether the Roman dodecahedra were practical tools, ritual items, or luxury curiosities. Their silence in Roman literature is especially baffling. The Romans wrote extensively about their engineering, yet these objects are never described. Were they too common to note, or too secret to record? To hold one in your hand today is to feel the unsettling mix of craftsmanship and mystery. Its weight is firm, its symmetry deliberate, yet its purpose remains out of reach. The Roman dodecahedra are humbler than pyramids or colossal statues, but in some ways more haunting, small, portable riddles left scattered across the empire, whispering of uses and meanings that time has erased. They remind us that even the most pragmatic of civilizations left behind puzzles that defy explanation, objects that make us wonder not only how they were made, but why. The Ark on Mount Ararat. For centuries, pilgrims and explorers have gazed up at the snow-capped peak of Mount Ararat, rising over 16,000 feet on the border of modern Turkey, and wondered if one of humanity's oldest stories might still linger there in wood and ice. According to the Book of Genesis, after the floodwaters receded, Noah's Ark came to rest upon the mountains of Ararat. The idea that remnants of that vessel might survive, buried beneath glaciers, has inspired countless expeditions and countless controversies. The mainstream fact is that traditions linking the Ark to Mount Ararat date back at least to the early Christian centuries. The mountain's imposing presence, coupled with biblical references to the mountains of Ararat, made it a natural candidate. Over the years, explorers have reported curious sightings, dark shapes protruding from melting ice, wooden beams half buried in snow, or unusual formations resembling the outline of a ship. Yet none of these claims have produced evidence accepted by the broader archaeological community. Quirky details fuel the fascination. In the 1950s, aerial photographs taken by a US reconnaissance plane revealed a boat-shaped formation near the village of Doğu, known today as the Dropa site. Measuring about 500 feet long, the feature seemed uncannily close to the biblical ark's dimensions. Tests and surveys have produced conflicting results, some suggesting natural geology, others hinting at unusual structure. More recently, ground-penetrating radar studies have reignited debate, though no definitive proof has emerged. Fringe theories abound. Some believers argue that governments and institutions deliberately suppress evidence of the Ark, fearing its implications for science and religion. Others link the Ark to broader myths of lost civilizations, imagining it as a technological craft rather than a simple wooden barge. Ancient astronaut enthusiasts even propose that the Ark was less a boat than a vessel from the stars, a life-preserving capsule whose memory survives as myth. Scholars still debate whether the story of Noah's Ark was inspired by a real flood in Mesopotamia, perhaps linked to rising waters of the Black Sea or catastrophic river floods in antiquity. If so, the Ark may be more symbolic than literal, a vessel of survival etched into human memory. The Mount Ararat tradition, while deeply rooted, remains unverified, suspended between faith and geology. To climb Mount Ararat today is to step into both legend and landscape. The air thins, glaciers glisten, and the summit looms like a guardian of secrets. Whether or not wooden beams truly rest beneath its ice, the mountain itself carries the weight of centuries of longing. The Ark may never be found, or perhaps it never existed as described. Yet the enduring quest speaks to something deeper, humanity's need to believe that in the face of catastrophe, salvation once floated upon the waters and may still lie hidden, waiting to be uncovered. The Baghdad astronomical tablets. Buried for millennia in the ruins of Mesopotamia, fragments of clay inscribed with cuneiform writing have revealed a startling truth. The Babylonians, working as early as the 7th century BCE, possessed astronomical knowledge of remarkable sophistication. Among these relics are the Babylonian astronomical tablets, records that charted the movements of celestial bodies with a precision that seems almost modern. One tablet, discovered in the ruins of Babylon, has astonished researchers by demonstrating the use of geometry to predict the path of Jupiter, an achievement once thought impossible before the Renaissance. The mainstream fact is that the Babylonians were avid sky watchers. They tracked the phases of the moon, the appearances of Venus, and the wandering of planets across the heavens. These observations were not mere curiosities, but vital to their culture, guiding agricultural cycles, religious ceremonies, and omens for kings. The tablets, baked hard by time, record centuries of data, making Babylon one of the birthplaces of scientific astronomy. Quirky details deepen the marvel. In 2016, scholars deciphered a tablet that revealed Babylonian scribes used a form of geometric calculation, dividing time and velocity into trapezoids, to predict planetary positions. This method, thought to have been invented in medieval Europe, was being used 2,000 years earlier in Mesopotamia. Such knowledge suggests not only keen observation, but abstract mathematical thought, long before it was expected. Fringe theories take the anomaly even further. Some claim the Babylonians inherited their knowledge from an earlier lost civilization, perhaps even from the fabled Anunnaki themselves. To enthusiasts of ancient astronauts, the tablets prove that guidance came from beyond, enabling a leap in understanding that ordinary stargazing could not explain. Others imagine that much of Babylonian knowledge was suppressed or lost, with only fragments surviving on broken clay. Scholars still debate the full extent of Babylonian mathematics. Were these techniques isolated to a few scribes, or part of a broader systematic science that influenced later Greek astronomy? How much of what we consider modern thought may have had roots in mud brick cities along the Euphrates? Each tablet unearthed adds another piece, yet the picture remains incomplete. To hold one of these tablets today, etched with tiny wedge marks, is to touch both science and story. The clay is humble, yet the ideas it encodes reach to the stars. The Babylonians, standing beneath desert skies, saw in the heavens a tapestry of order and meaning. Their tablets remind us that human curiosity has always lifted our gaze upward, and that sometimes the ancients understood far more than we have given them credit for. The Ubaid lizard figurines. In the dusty layers of southern Mesopotamia, dating back over 7,000 years, archaeologists have uncovered a set of small clay statues unlike anything else from the ancient world. These artifacts, associated with the prehistoric Ubaid culture, circa 5000 to 4000 BCE, depict humanoid figures with elongated heads, slender bodies, and most striking of all, faces resembling lizards. Their slanted eyes, pointed snouts, and scaled textures make them appear less like people and more like something reptilian. The mainstream fact is that the Ubaid culture was a sophisticated Neolithic society, known for early irrigation, farming villages, and the spread of pottery styles across Mesopotamia. The figurines, found primarily at sites like Al-Ubaid and Eridu, are thought by many archaeologists to represent deities, priests, or symbolic beings tied to fertility and protection. Some hold infants, others wear helmets or carry staffs, suggesting roles of authority or ritual importance. Their reptilian features may have been purely symbolic, perhaps linked to animal totems or mythic hybrids. Quirky details, however, make them especially haunting. The figurines often appear in poses of power or nurture. One shows a lizard-headed figure suckling an infant, merging the familiar with the alien. The craftsmanship, while simple, conveys a sense of intention, as though these were not mere toys but objects charged with meaning. Unlike other prehistoric figurines, which emphasize human traits, the Ubaid statues seem deliberately other, as if portraying beings apart from ordinary humanity. Fringe theories leap at this imagery. Some claim the Ubaid figurines are evidence that the Anunnaki, reptilian gods from the heavens, once walked among humans. Ancient astronaut enthusiasts see them as literal depictions of extraterrestrial visitors who guided early civilization. In more modern mythologies, they are tied to conspiracy theories of reptilian overlords, projecting today's fears back into prehistory. Others imagine they were records of shamanic visions, encounters with altered states of consciousness rendered in clay. Scholars still debate their true significance. Were they sacred idols, protective charms, or artistic experiments? The absence of written records leaves interpretation wide open. What is clear is that the Ubaid culture was deeply spiritual, laying foundations that would later blossom into Sumerian religion, the same tradition that gave rise to the Anunnaki myths centuries later. To look upon an Ubaid lizard figurine today is to feel the uncanny tug of both familiarity and strangeness. They remind us that prehistoric people saw their world in ways we may never fully grasp, blending human and animal, myth and reality. Whether gods, guardians, or glimpses of something we no longer understand, the lizard-headed figures stand as silent messengers from a time before writing, their gaze both ancient and unsettlingly timeless. The Yonaguni Monument. Beneath the waves off the southern coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island lies a structure that has ignited one of the fiercest debates in modern archaeology. Discovered in 1986 by a local diver, the Yonaguni Monument consists of massive stone terraces, steps and platforms stretching across the seafloor. Its sheer scale is breathtaking. Flat walls, right angles, and stair-like features rising from the seabed as though an ancient city now sleeps beneath the ocean. To some, it is clear evidence of a forgotten civilization swallowed by the sea. To others, it is nothing more than the handiwork of nature, sculpted by currents and fractures in the rock. The mainstream fact is that Yonaguni's geology consists of sandstone, a material prone to fracturing along straight lines. Natural erosion can produce block-like formations and terraces that mimic human design. Many geologists argue that the monument is simply an unusual but natural formation, its dramatic appearance magnified by the lens of human imagination. Yet divers who have swum among its ledges cannot help but be struck by the uncanny resemblance to architecture. What looks like a staircase here, a stage there, even a roadway vanishing into the deep. Quirky details keep the mystery alive. Some divers report carvings or symbols etched into the stone, though these are disputed. Others note what appears to be a pyramid-shaped structure, alongside features that resemble pillars, gates, or avenues. The site sits in a region that was above sea level thousands of years ago, during the last ice age, raising the tantalizing question of whether human hands once shaped the rock before rising seas claimed it. Fringe theories seize upon this possibility with vigor. Enthusiasts argue that Yonaguni is the ruin of a civilization far older than recorded Japanese history, perhaps even a remnant of the mythical Pasiphae, sea land of Mu, a counterpart to Atlantis. Others suggest it was a ceremonial site, an ancient harbour, or evidence of advanced seafaring cultures long forgotten. The idea that humans carved and inhabited this monument more than 10,000 years ago places it well before the accepted dawn of complex societies, challenging the timeline of civilization itself. Scholars still debate where the line between geology and archaeology should be drawn. Is Yonaguni proof of lost builders, or simply an extraordinary quirk of stone and sea? The absence of definitive artifacts, tools, pottery, bones, leans toward nature, yet the human mind, when faced with such striking geometry, struggles to accept coincidence alone. Diving among Yonaguni's submerged terraces today, fish darting between ledges and light filtering down through the blue, one feels the eerie majesty of the place. Whether temple or tectonic trick, the monument stirs a deep sense of wonder. It reminds us that the boundary between natural and human-made is not always clear, and that beneath the sea, mysteries endure, waiting for us to surface them once more. The Saqqara Bird. In 1898, excavators at the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, near Cairo, unearthed a small wooden object buried among the tomb goods. Shaped like a bird, with outstretched wings and a vertical tail, it measured just 7 inches across. At first glance, it seemed a simple carving, perhaps a child's toy or symbolic offering. Yet its proportions and its curious resemblance to a modern glider have made the Saqqara Bird one of Egypt's strangest artifacts. The mainstream fact is that the object dates to around 200 BCE, during Egypt's Ptolemaic period. Wooden figures of animals were common grave goods, often representing deities or symbols of protection. Birds in particular were associated with the soul, the biar, which was often depicted as a bird with a human head. The Saqqara bird may have been intended to help the deceased spirit fly freely in the afterlife, a spiritual metaphor carved in cedar. Quirky details, however, make it hard to dismiss. Unlike purely decorative carvings, the Saqqara bird has aerodynamic qualities. Its wings are straight and tapered, its body streamlined, and its tail vertical rather than horizontal, more like a rudder than a bird's tail feathers. Some aeronautical engineers who examined replicas found that, with modifications, the design could achieve gliding flight. Others noted its proportions were close to those of modern aircraft models. Was it coincidence, ritual symbolism, or something more? Fringe theories have embraced the artifact as evidence of ancient aeronautical knowledge. Some claim the Egyptians may have experimented with flight, crafting gliders or kites centuries before the Wright brothers. A few go further, suggesting the Saqqara bird is a scaled-down model of a larger craft, now lost to history, or even a memory of aerial technology introduced by beings from beyond. These interpretations, though captivating, remain speculative, as no direct evidence of ancient flight has been found in Egypt. Scholars still debate its function. Was it a toy, a ritual offering, a weather vane? Some point out that without a stabilizing horizontal tail, the object would not fly effectively, supporting the symbolic rather than practical explanation. Yet its precise carving, its symmetry, and its enduring aerodynamic resemblance keep the debate alive. To hold the Saqqara bird, or even a replica, is to feel the tension between faith and science, metaphor and technology. It is small, delicate, and silent, yet it carries the weight of questions that reach far beyond its size. Whether funerary symbol, experimental glider, or something stranger, the Saqqara bird invites us to imagine the skies as the ancients may have, not only as the realm of gods and spirits, but as a frontier humans once dreamed of touching. The Hypogeum of Malta. Beneath the bustling streets of modern Valletta, Malta's capital, lies a labyrinth carved into limestone more than 5,000 years ago. Known as the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, this subterranean complex stretches across 3 levels, its chambers linked by corridors, stairways, and carved doorways. First discovered in 1902 during construction work, the site is one of the most extraordinary prehistoric monuments in Europe, part burial ground, part temple, and entirely shrouded in mystery. The mainstream fact is that the Hypogeum was built by the temple-building culture of Malta, who flourished between 3600 and 2500 BCE. Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of more than 7,000 individuals within its chambers, suggesting it served as a necropolis. The site is aligned with Malta's above-ground megalithic temples such as Hagar-Chim and Menajdra, part of a broader ritual landscape unique in the prehistoric world. Carvings on the walls, spirals, honeycomb patterns and red ochre paint suggest a symbolic, spiritual purpose. Quirky details make the Hypogeum truly haunting. In one chamber, known as the Oracle Room, the acoustics are so finely tuned that a voice spoken within resonates powerfully throughout the complex. A low male voice can cause the walls to hum at a frequency of 111 Hz, a vibration some believe could alter consciousness. This suggests the Hypogeum was not only a tomb but also a ceremonial space where sound itself became a tool of ritual. Fringe theories seize on these peculiarities. Some argue the Hypogeum was more than a burial ground, that it functioned as a kind of initiation chamber, or even as an ancient resonance machine designed to affect the human mind. A handful of early reports from excavators claimed that elongated skulls were found among the remains, fueling speculation of a lost race or even visitors not interred. Eli human. Though most of these claims remain unverified or lost to poor documentation, they continue to inspire speculation about the site's deeper meaning. Scholars still debate the precise rituals that took place here, the reasons for its extraordinary acoustics, and how such a complex was carved with only stone tools. No written records survive from Malta's temple culture, leaving us to piece together its story from architecture and bones alone. To descend into the Hypogeum today, lit only by soft lamps, is to enter another world. The walls close in, shadows flicker, and silence is broken only by the echo of one's breath. It feels less like a tomb and more like a gateway, a place where the living once met the dead, and perhaps something beyond. Whether seen as a marvel of prehistoric engineering or a portal into the unknown, the Hypogeum of Malta remains one of the most enigmatic spaces ever carved by human hands. The Nebra Sky Disc. In 1999, on a hillside near Nebra in Germany, looters searching for treasure stumbled upon an object unlike anything archaeologists had ever seen. Measuring just over a foot across, forged in bronze and inlaid with gold, it depicted a circle, a crescent, and clusters of dots against a dark patina. Quickly recognised as a Bronze Age artefact, the Nebra Sky Disc has since been hailed as one of the most important finds in European prehistory, an ancient map of the heavens, dating to around 1600 BCE. The mainstream fact is that the disc represents a remarkable synthesis of astronomy and symbolism. The central circle is generally interpreted as the sun, though some see it as the full moon. The crescent likely depicts a lunar phase. A cluster of 7 dots matches the Pleiades star cluster, known across cultures for its role in tracking agricultural cycles. Later additions to the disc include gold arcs at the edges, interpreted as horizon markers, and a curved band at the bottom, possibly representing a solar bark, a symbol common in Bronze Age iconography. Quirky details make the disc even more compelling. The gold inlays were sourced from distant mines, showing wide trade networks. The arrangement of the arcs suggests the makers tracked the solstices, allowing them to calibrate a calendar that aligned the lunar and solar years. In effect, the disc may have functioned as both a sacred object and a practical tool for guiding agriculture and ritual. Yet its meaning seems to have shifted over time. Modifications were made centuries after its creation, as though each generation reinterpreted its power. Fringe theories, unsurprisingly, have flourished. Some argue the disc encodes knowledge far beyond its time, pointing to its precise astronomical alignments as evidence of advanced or inherited wisdom. A few suggest it is proof of contact between European tribes and distant civilizations, or even visitors from beyond Earth who shared cosmic knowledge with early peoples. Others see it as part of a larger, now lost system of star maps, its survival a mere accident of history. Scholars still debate whether the disc was primarily a ritual object, a practical calendar, or a fusion of both. Its discovery among a hoard of weapons hints at ceremonial burial, suggesting it was revered as much for its symbolism as for its utility. What is clear is that it represents a leap in human understanding, the sky not merely observed but captured, conceptualized, and carried in hand. To stand before the Nebra Sky Disc today, its gold inlays gleaming under museum lights, is to glimpse the cosmos through Bronze Age eyes. It is both art and science, myth and measurement, a window into how ancient peoples made sense of the stars. Whether tool, talisman, or something between, the disc reminds us that the heavens have always been a mirror for humanity's deepest questions, the hidden tunnels of Teotihuacan. Beneath the sunlit ruins of Teotihuacan, the great city of central Mexico, archaeologists have uncovered a secret world carved into the earth. Once home to more than 100,000 people, Teotihuacan flourished between the 1st and 7th centuries CE, its broad avenues and pyramids rivaling any metropolis of antiquity. Yet in recent decades, explorations beneath the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent have revealed something unexpected: long, hidden tunnels filled with offerings, symbols, and echoes of rituals now lost to time. The mainstream fact is that these tunnels are real, painstakingly excavated by archaeologists using modern technology. In 1971, a secret passage was found under the Pyramid of the Sun. Later, in 2003, ground-penetrating radar revealed a tunnel stretching beneath the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent. Inside, researchers discovered thousands of artifacts: jade, obsidian blades, seashells carried from distant coasts, and even pools of liquid mercury shimmering in the dark. Such finds suggest the tunnels were not practical infrastructure, but sacred spaces, perhaps representing the underworld. Quirky details give the tunnels a haunting quality. The walls appear dusted with pyrite, creating the illusion of stars twinkling in the darkness. Offerings were arranged with care, as though the very earth was a stage for cosmic drama. Some chambers end abruptly, sealed off, as if their secrets were never meant to be revealed. And curiously, no texts survive from Teotihuacan's builders to explain their rituals, leaving us to interpret the silence of stone and soil. Fringe theories flourish in this silence. Some imagine the tunnels were initiation chambers for priests or rulers, where Mercury represented rivers of the underworld. Others claim they were repositories of hidden knowledge, perhaps even vaults protecting artifacts from civilizations older than Teotihuacan itself. Ancient astronaut enthusiasts see the Mercury as evidence of exotic technology, linking it to propulsion systems and spacecraft, though archaeologists interpret it more symbolically. Scholars still debate who built Teotihuacan in the first place, for even its founding people remain anonymous. Was it the Totonacs, the Nahua, or a coalition of cultures? By the time the Aztecs arrived centuries later, the city was long abandoned, yet they revered it as the place where gods were made. The tunnels, hidden until modern times, only deepen the mystery of a city whose story resists final telling. To descend into these passages today is to step into the shadowed heart of Teotihuacan. The air grows heavy, offerings glint in the torchlight, and silence presses close. It feels less like archaeology and more like trespassing into sacred ground. The hidden tunnels remind us that even the greatest cities conceal secrets beneath their stones, secrets that connect the living with the dead, the earth with the sky, and the known with the unknowable. Conclusion. 40 mysteries, scattered across continents and centuries, remind us that history is not a fixed ledger, but a living riddle. From the desert lines of Nazca to the submerged steppes of Yonaguni, from the whispering chambers of Malta to the tunnels beneath Teotihuacan, each enigma is a doorway into the human imagination. Some are grounded in fact, their mysteries born of lost context. Others lean toward legend, their truths dissolved into story. Yet all share a common thread, the desire of people, ancient and modern alike, to reach beyond the ordinary and touch the extraordinary. Scholars may debate, theories may clash, but the allure of these mysteries endures. They are reminders that our past is not fully known, that fragments of forgotten knowledge still lie hidden in stone, in soil, and in story. To explore them is not only to question history, but to feel the weight of wonder, that humbling awareness that we are inheritors of a past far stranger and far richer than we ever imagined.